I think the most rebellious thing you can do as an adult is choose optimism. Remember when you were a kid and you would see the oldest person in your house, maybe your parent or a grandparent, just sitting quietly in a chair lost in thought? You probably wondered what they were thinking about. They looked so distant, so tired, like life had worn them down a bit. I used to wonder why they would isolate themselves like that, why they seemed so drained, staring off into nothing. As I've gotten older, I think I'm starting to understand. Life has a way of pushing you towards pessimism. You see, small disappointments stack up, dreams get harder to chase, and eventually it just feels safer to stop expecting things to work out. Cynicism becomes easy. It feels smart, even comforting because it protects you from getting hurt or disappointed again. You tell yourself, oh, I'm just a realist. Hoping for good things feels risky, almost irresponsible. You become the wise one in your friend group, not because you actually have the answers, but because you never seem surprised when things go wrong. Your life motto gradually becomes, oh, if I expect the worst, I can't be disappointed. Any hint of optimism from someone else just makes you roll your eyes because optimism feels childish, almost foolish, when you've convinced yourself you already know how things usually end. You weren't always like this. You missed the old you. There was a time when you would actually let yourself get excited. You had dreams that seemed achievable, things you'd look forward to without immediately worrying they would go wrong. You felt lighter. You weren't angry all the time. The world seemed yellow and bright. You didn't feel trapped by expectations. You felt genuine excitement without immediately questioning it. But now, even your happiest moments come with suspicion. You're always bracing for the other shoe to drop. You see, pessimism is tricky because you can be pessimistic about some things and optimistic about others. For example, a person might hope for the best in their career while expecting the worst in relationships. Or they can be hopeful about the world in a general sense, but completely cynical when it comes to their own life. You know those folks where they genuinely believe humanity can do better, yet deep down, they're convinced their own life will never change. It's strange how we compartmentalize hope like this, protecting ourselves from disappointments in the areas where we've been hurt before, while still allowing optimism to live safely in places we haven't yet felt pain. That's why you sometimes see adults become hopeful around children. There's something disarming about innocence. You see, kids haven't yet been hurt enough to fear optimism, and their excitement feels contagious, maybe even safe. That's probably why the adults around you when you were growing up seemed like two completely different people. They'll sit quietly by themselves, exhausted by life, carrying burdens you couldn't fully understand. Yet when they turned to you, their mood shifted. They became playful, joyful, protective. It was almost as if they were hiding that tired, beaten down part of themselves. It's almost like they were ashamed of showing you the heaviness they carried. Maybe they felt if you saw the doubts and fears, your hopefulness might fade out too quickly. They shielded you from their pessimism in a sense. It almost felt like they were holding it back like a secret, hoping you'd remain innocent just a little longer, that your optimism would survive a bit longer than theirs had. You probably remember the exact moment when that shield started falling away, when you first caught a glimpse of reality. Maybe it was overhearing a conversation you weren't meant to hear, or maybe a look in their eyes after a tough day, the worry, the quiet sadness that made them cranky. It felt strange at first, but then you realize that optimism wasn't effortless for adults. Eventually, you become an adult yourself. You go through your own quiet moments of crisis, wondering if you're making the right choices, worried about what happens next, unsure if life will ever feel as simple as it did before. And then one day, without even noticing, you become that person, the adult you once watched from afar, sitting quietly by yourself, lost in thought. You realize you've become your parents. You start to understand something important. Happiness doesn't really work the way you thought it did as a kid. It's not like defeating a final villain in a video game where afterwards you just sit back and enjoy victory forever. It doesn't feel like reaching the Garden of Eden where everything stays perfect once you arrive. Instead, happiness comes and goes. Moments of real joy pass quickly and they are replaced again by worry or uncertainty. There isn't a final level where things suddenly become easy and perfect and stay that way. And once you accept this, you understand that optimism isn't believing you'll reach a permanent paradise. It's about choosing to find small joys again and again, despite knowing they won't last forever. Optimism as an adult is a form of rebellion. Anyone who says you deserve to be happy 24/7, 365 days a year is probably trying to sell you something. Life just doesn't work like that. Imagine playing a game where everything always worked out perfectly. Would that even feel like a game worth playing? What experience or meaning will you gain if you never had setbacks, obstacles, or tough choices to make? Real optimism isn't ignoring reality or seeing life through these rose colored glasses. It's understanding exactly how difficult and complicated life can be, but still choosing to find meaning. We need pessimism to see life clearly and protect ourselves from being naive. But we also need optimism so we can learn, grow, and create meaning from all the challenges we face. Life is a constant push and pull between these two sides. And maybe the point isn't to pick one or the other, but to accept that both will always exist together. So, whenever you feel optimistic about the future or find yourself genuinely excited or happy about something, try to ground yourself in that moment as fully as possible. Pinch yourself if you have to. Take a second to appreciate how lucky you are to experience it right now, because you know it won't last forever. You can't lock happiness away in a time capsule or store it away in some safe to use later. Once it's gone, at least until next time. The glass is neither half full nor half empty. It is both at the same time, and life is exactly like that. It's never one clear thing or another. It's messy, it's complicated, and constantly changing. There's no perfect ending, no permanent state of happiness or sadness, just moments you get to experience briefly before moving on to the next. Thank you for listening, and as always, you can check out other episodes in the library. You can give the show a rating and follow the TikTok and YouTube channels. Links are in the description. Stay safe out there.